They're an embarrassment to the family. Get them out of here before someone sees. That's what my mother said about my children, her grandchildren, and she didn't whisper it. She said it in her garden in broad daylight, one hand on her pearls, the other holding a wine glass. My son was 10, my daughter was 7, and they were sitting on the porch steps, drawing quietly on napkins because we forgot to pack coloring books. My father didn't say anything, just nodded once and looked away, like maybe if he didn't make eye contact, the shame wouldn't belong to him. I stood still, like my body forgot what to do. The next morning, I was handed an ultimatum over breakfast. My mother folded her cloth napkin perfectly in half before speaking. Lena, I love your kids, but not everyone needs to see them. We'll pay for boarding school. Something discreet. You can stay here, be part of the foundation again, but you need to do what's best. Best? They meant quiet. They meant invisible. They meant, your kids don't fit the image we built. Because my son had ADHD. Because my daughter had meltdowns sometimes. Because they weren't dressed in matching sweaters and didn't sit with their hands folded at the dinner table. They wanted the illusion, not the reality. And I had a choice. I could have argued, could have cried, could have tried to educate them again like I had so many times before. But instead I said, okay. I didn't explain what that meant. I simply tucked my children into bed that night, kissed their foreheads and whispered, "You're perfect." And then I got to work, because they thought I would leave quietly. They had no idea I would take everything with me. They didn't know I handled their digital accounts. Didn't know I had power of attorney for my father's media holdings. Didn't know the foundation's largest donor had quietly switched her legal address to my apartment last year for tax reasons. They didn't know because they never asked. They assumed I was just the daughter who made things look nice. But the truth? I was the spine of their empire. And when I pulled back, everything would start to fold. I wasn't raised by bad people. I was raised by perfect people. The kind who hosted charity auctions, but only posed for photos with certain guests. The kind who donated to causes as long as there was press coverage and a plaque. We didn't say things like therapy. We didn't mention disability. We didn't make people uncomfortable. We smiled. We were graceful. We were curated. Growing up, I learned how to be good at things that looked good. I danced. I smiled on cue. I ironed my pleated skirts. I studied what they told me to study. And when I married someone they approved of, they congratulated themselves like they'd closed another business deal. But when I divorced him 5 years later, after he left me with 2 kids and a mountain of unpaid bills, the congratulations turned to silence. I became a complication. And worse, my children didn't blend. My son Noah is brilliant, kinetic, emotional, loud in the best ways. He can tell you the life cycle of a frog and the entire periodic table, but he forgets to tie his shoes. He talks fast when he's excited, gets distracted by textures, taps his pencil in rhythms that mean something only to him. To me, he's a wonder. To them, he's a problem. My daughter, June, is tender, the kind of child who feels things to the bone. She cries when she sees animals in cages, gets overwhelmed by loud music, needs more time to warm up. She draws entire stories in silence, then hands me pages with characters that have my eyes. To me, she's magic. To them, she's fragile. I try to shield them. When we visited, I packed quiet toys, coached them on manners, watched them like a hawk, ready to intercept judgment before it landed. But it always did. My mother once looked at Noah during dinner and said, "Maybe he's just undisciplined." And when June cried after getting overwhelmed by a room full of people, my father shook his head and muttered, "Overly sensitive, just like her mother." They never said it directly, but I heard it in every pause. "You're not raising them right. They're not like us. Maybe they don't belong here." So when they gave me that final ultimatum, boarding school or get out, I didn't scream. I finally heard them for what they really were. And in that moment, I made a decision. If I had to choose between protecting my children's joy or protecting my family's image, there was no choice. They would never make my children feel small again. And they were about to learn what happens when the invisible daughter finally shows up. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't make a scene. Didn't post a message. Didn't tell a single soul outside my closest friend. I just packed my children's things while they were still sleeping, left a folded note on the marble counter, and drove away before sunrise. The note said, "Thank you for your offer. We decline." By noon that day, I'd already frozen 2 internal family accounts, ones that I managed quietly for years, under their names, but through my access. Not stolen, not hidden, just paused, because the foundation we ran had 3 co-signers, my father, my mother, and me. And the second I felt my children were no longer safe under their roof, I initiated my legal right to temporarily freeze transactions pending independent audit. It was something I'd written into the charter myself years ago after noticing some creative bookkeeping. They forgot, because they forgot what I was actually worth. The calls started that evening. My father first. Controlled, measured. "Lena, we need to talk. Some of the vendors are saying they haven't received final payment. We're not sure what's going on, but I assume it's a technical error." No mention of the note. No mention of my children. Just the money. I didn't answer. Then the board members started calling. 2 of them emailed, asking if I had insight into the situation. One of them even said, "We were under the impression you were still overseeing donor relations. Without you, some things have stalled." Exactly, because while they posed for interviews, while they handed out scholarships with cameras rolling, while they accepted praise from donors who never met the recipients, I was the one writing the letters. I was the one keeping the books. I was the one who answered midnight emails from people in crisis. They built the brand. I did the work. And now, the work had left the building. Within 48 hours, 3 payments bounced. A scholarship student called crying because her rent wasn't paid on time, and she hadn't heard back from the office. My mother had forwarded the email to her assistant with one line, "Can we delay this until next quarter?" Her tone felt entitled. I saw the message, because the assistant, she was the first person to quietly reach out and say, "What's going on? It feels like everything's cracking." It was, but not because I broke anything. I just stopped holding up. They still hadn't apologized. They didn't ask where I was. Didn't ask if my kids were okay. Didn't ask if I was hurt by what they said. They only wanted things to go back to the way they were. But the thing about silence, once you let it speak for you, it says everything. My parents always thought I was obedient. Not because I was weak, but because I never pushed back in public. They confused silence with submission. But while they were performing for donors and newspapers, I was studying contracts, learning systems, building relationships with the people who actually made things move. And now, I was about to remove myself from every single thing I once held together. The first step was legal. I met with my lawyer, Miriam, a quiet woman with a sharper mind than most politicians. We reviewed the foundation structure, the trust accounts, the multi-family investment fund I helped organize 5 years ago. She raised an eyebrow. "You understand you're not just a participant here," she said. "You have authority. Real authority." "I know," I said. "I just never used it." "Well, you're about to." We filed formal notices to all foundation partners and sponsors. I was stepping down from all roles immediately. I was releasing my co-signing rights. And I was requesting a third-party audit of all donor-related financial activity in the last 2 fiscal years. Not because I was accusing anyone, but because I no longer trusted anything with their names on it. Then came the public step. I didn't write an expose. I didn't go to the press. I did something far simpler and far more devastating. I issued a single, calm, professional statement on LinkedIn. It read, "After 12 years of working behind the scenes at the foundation name, I've chosen to step away. I'm proud of the community we've supported. I look forward to building something more transparent, inclusive, and human." That was it. No mud, no names, no drama, but it spread like fire, because anyone who had worked with us knew what that statement really meant. My inbox flooded. Former interns, donors, volunteers. One message stood out. "You were the only reason I stayed as long as I did. I always wondered how you smiled through it all." I didn't answer, because I didn't need to explain myself anymore. My parents didn't call, but their silence turned frantic behind the scenes. I heard through a vendor that my mother had tried to reassign me publicly, claimed I was taking a leave to focus on family. I responded with one sentence, forwarded through legal. Please cease misrepresentation of my employment status. I am no longer affiliated with your organization. It wasn't a threat. It was a wall. And this time, they couldn't climb it. They thought I was bluffing, even after the legal notices, even after the LinkedIn post, even after I removed myself from every signature and every login. They still assumed I'd come back, that I'd cool down, that once I felt better, I'd return to my place behind the curtain. But I wasn't angry. I was done. The cracks became headlines. First, a delay in scholarship disbursements. Then, a public correction issued by one of the foundation's largest sponsors, distancing themselves from the board. I didn't say a word, but others did. Donors noticed that the voice behind the emails was gone. Volunteers noticed that no one responded to urgent requests. Former partners began pulling out quietly, saying, "Let us know when Lena returns." Except I wouldn't. And for the first time, my parents realized something they had never admitted out loud. I wasn't just part of the system. I was the system. My mother tried to recover the image. She released a statement about realigning the foundation's future with modern values, which was just her way of saying, please don't ask us what happened. My father, predictably, stayed quiet. That was always his role, the steady man in the background. But without me, the background started falling apart. Internal audits began. 2 former employees filed complaints about hostile work culture. A podcast that once praised their philanthropy now aired an episode called When Good Optics Hide Rotten Roots. And still I said nothing, because revenge wasn't my goal. I didn't need to destroy them. I just needed to stop protecting them. And without my silence, without my labor, without my name floating quietly behind their polished press releases, their story unraveled all by itself. Then came the final move. The house. They thought I'd forgotten. Years ago, they transferred part ownership of one of their vacation homes into a family trust, meant for future grandchildren retreats. Something poetic and performative. But I was listed as co-owner. And now, I no longer needed it. So I sold my share to a nonprofit that runs inclusive retreats for families with neurodivergent children. My lawyer handled it all. When the paperwork went through, the new co-owner informed my mother the annual founders-only gathering could no longer be held on the property without a usage agreement. She was livid. She called me, first time in months. Voicemail, of course. You're out of control, Lena. This isn't about the kids. This is about punishing us. I played it twice, then deleted it, because it wasn't punishment. It was permission, the kind I'd waited too long to give myself. They used to say I was sensitive, too emotional, too reactive, but all I did was remove myself. And when I left, so did everything they built on top of me. Collapse doesn't look the way people expect. It's not dramatic. It's not instant. It's slow, embarrassing, revealing. And it always starts quietly. The foundation's website began glitching. Their assistant, the one who used to forward all difficult questions to me, quit with no notice. The summer fundraiser they'd been planning got pulled when their biggest corporate sponsor backed out, citing internal alignment concerns. Rumors started circulating. Not from me, not from any public source, but from the people who'd worked with us for years, who now whispered the truth over wine and gallery openings. Wasn't Lena the one actually running things? Why did she leave? You know, she was never even in the family portraits. I wasn't in those photos. Not once. Even during galas I coordinated, fundraisers I built, award dinners I scripted, they always kept me out of frame. I wasn't stylish enough. Not photogenic. Too plain. My mother once cropped me out of a photo and posted the rest with the caption, "Grateful for everyone who makes this mission possible." Now, they couldn't hide behind captions anymore. The cracks reached public attention when a journalist, one who had covered our foundation before, wrote an op-ed titled, "When Founders Fall Silent, a Legacy Unraveling in Real Time." The article never mentioned my name, But it didn't have to. It detailed discrepancies in financial reports, highlighted missing leadership, questioned the sudden vanishing of the person widely regarded as the glue behind the organization. They reached out to me for comment. I politely declined, because I wasn't interested in burning anything. I just stopped holding a match for them. Meanwhile, my children were thriving. No more visits with whispered judgment. No more car rides home after forced events where June would cry and Noah would bounce in frustration from holding everything in. We had peace. We had normal. And I saw something I hadn't in years. My kids smiling without hesitation. One afternoon, Noah asked me, "Why don't we go to Grandma's anymore?" I paused, then said, "Because love shouldn't have conditions." He nodded, didn't ask again. Children understand truth better than we think. Back in their world, my mother sent one final email, subject line, "Family Matters." Her message was short. "I think it's time we had a conversation. It's gone too far. Come for dinner this Sunday. Just you. No kids. Let's settle this." I didn't respond, because my kids weren't negotiable, and dinner wasn't going to fix what years of dismissal had broken. For them, collapse meant losing influence, losing donors, losing face. For me, collapse was finally standing up straight, and realizing I'd been bent for too long just to fit into a picture that never had room for me. I didn't rebuild my life out of anger. I rebuilt it out of relief. Because once you step away from people who only value you for silence, you start to remember what your voice actually sounds like. It took time, but piece by piece I began to fill the space they left behind with people, purpose, and peace I didn't need to apologize for. I started working with a local nonprofit, one that didn't host black tie galas or name wings after donors. They ran programs for kids with learning differences, families like mine, mothers like me. No one asked me if my children were too loud. No one said, "Can you sit in the back?" No one said, "They're not a good fit." They said, "You belong here." June began drawing again, entire worlds on paper, just like she used to. She gave her characters soft names like Hope and Quiet and Bright. She told me the quiet ones were always the strongest. Noah started writing poems in a composition notebook he didn't want me to read yet. He tapped rhythms into the dinner table, like music only he understood. For the first time, I wasn't trying to change them. I was learning from them. I began hosting small workshops for parents. Not lectures, just honest spaces. We talked about guilt, shame, the pressure to make our kids fit into boxes they were never meant for. Some of them cried. Some of them exhaled like it was the first time in months. Every time I reminded them, our job isn't to fix our children to fit the world. It's to build a world that fits them. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a clipping of the original op-ed, the one about the foundation falling apart, with 3 words scribbled in unfamiliar handwriting across the bottom. "We see you." I smiled, because that was all I ever wanted. Not attention, not revenge, just to be seen. For the work. For the love, for the strength it takes to walk away and build something new with your hands still shaking. I don't talk about my parents anymore. When people ask, I say, "We're not close." And that's enough, because I'm not here to prove anything. I'm here to live a life that doesn't require me to choose between my children's dignity and someone else's comfort. The woman they tried to erase, she grew roots. She built a home, a purpose, a community. And every day I wake up, I remind myself, this life didn't come from winning. It came from walking away. I kept the letter, the one they left on the counter the day they gave me the ultimatum. It was handwritten, unusually so, with neat cursive and cold wording. This home has rules, and if you can't control your children, then you'll need to find somewhere else that accepts that. They didn't sign it. They didn't need to. Their message was clear. You are welcome, but only if you are quiet. Your children are welcome, but only if they disappear. I folded it and placed it in a small envelope, tucked deep in a file I no longer open. Not because I hold on to bitterness, because I never want to forget the moment I chose them over everything else. We live in a small house now, not a mansion, not a curated showpiece, A home. There are fingerprints on the windows, books in every corner, noise, laughter, the occasional outburst, all of it human and holy. My kids have friends who understand them, teachers who see them, a mother who doesn't apologize for them. And I have mornings without knots in my stomach, evenings without preparing explanations, nights where I sleep without rehearsing conversations in my head. People still ask about the past. Do you think your parents miss you? Do they know they lost? I always pause, because grief is a strange thing. It doesn't come with closure, just distance, and clarity, and a choice every single day to either build something new or stay buried in what was never mine to carry. So I say, I don't know if they miss me, but I no longer miss pretending I mattered. Sometimes I catch my reflection in the mirror and think, this is the woman they didn't think would survive without them. She looks different now. Not louder, not angrier, just whole. And that's the quiet truth they never saw coming. They thought pushing me out would break me, but it freed me, because I was never meant to be small enough to fit in their frame. I was meant to take up space, with my children beside me, and our full, messy, brilliant lives stretching far beyond the walls they built. I once stood in their house, holding my daughter's hand, wondering if love meant shrinking so others could stay comfortable. Now, I watch her run across the yard we call our own, hair wild, heart steady, and I know the answer. Love expands. Love holds. Love never threatens to throw you out for being exactly who you are. And I will never again choose silence for the sake of staying invited, because I don't need a seat at their table. I've built my own. And the people at it? They see me. They stay. And that's the only legacy worth passing on.